UFC 303. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash the likes. If you're new, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure you share the video as well. And also note, I'm going to be live for the entire card, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Do not miss the fight companion. It's going to be a fantastic Saturday. And let's get into the first fight on it. We have Ricky Simón versus Vinicius Oliveira. I'm going with Vinicius Oliveira. I'm going with Lock Dog to beat Ricky Simón. And I understand Simón has a legit wrestling threat that he brings into this fight. And on top of that, a lot more high-level experience. But what he doesn't have that I know Oliveira does is knockout ability. I think Vinicius Oliveira is one of the most dangerous guys at bantamweight right now as prospects on the come-up. Simón dips his head a little bit. I could see Oliveira working knees or even potentially uppercuts. Oliveira has something special around him. Big KO power, a massive frame for the weight class. And it's not like he's a horrible grappler. I know the Sopaj fight definitely draws some questions because he was put on his back. He had his back taken. He was beaten up a little bit on the ground. Did fight his way out of the position and do big damage from top. I can just see him cracking Ricky Simón with some massive shots. And then altogether, another factor that I add in is Oliveira has very good low kicks, which I really do think could slow Ricky Simón down. I'm going to go with Vinicius Oliveira, creative striking style with serious knockout ability to find the chin and put Ricky Simón down and out. I think he's going to get a massive win, and I think he's kind of on the fast track up the ranks getting this Ricky Simón fight. Looking at the odds, Oliveira the underdog at plus 180, Simón minus 210 the favorite. I don't think anybody's crazy for picking Ricky Simón to win a decision. It's definitely a path to victory. How I see it is Oliveira's live for the knockout throughout the entire fight, but Simón could embrace the grind and end up getting a wrestling heavy win. Now, looking at the over in the fight here, over 2.5 is plus 120. So it's interesting that they're expecting violence, but Simon's a 2-1 favorite, where I think it's a lot more likely that Ricky Simón wins by decision if we're going into the later stages. So that's an interesting something to note there. Now, as far as competition level for Simón in the last few, yes, he has a lot of high-level names on the resume, but Brian Kelleher decision is not impressive. A Sun Tzu knockout, it was an aging a Sun Tzu. A Jack Shore win, at the time it was big, but seeing how Jack Shore is done now, it's lost a lot of value. Obviously good losses. Song Yadong's a savage. Mario Batista is very good. Lock Dog is, the guy coming up the ranks right now that seems to have the goods to be something special. I like the power. I like the knockout ability with not only the legs, but also with the hands. And I think that the grappling defense will hold up better than people are anticipating. I'm going with Vinicius Oliveira, Lock Dog, to knock Ricky Simón out in what's going to be a violent fight. And honestly, the most hype fight to start the damn prelims off. If this is actually the first fight of the night, that's crazy. I think they might change the bout order. Next one, Carlos Hernandez versus Rei Tsuruya. Rei Tsuruya is a special grappling talent, and I don't think Carlos Hernandez is the guy to beat him. There's somewhat of a comparable style you can talk about with Mark Klimaiko and Carlos Hernandez. Both guys scrappy, strong, similar builds in a sense, and he was able to go long with Tsuruya and make it distance, but he still had moments where he was worked a little bit. I think that Ray's grappling, though, is too high caliber. I could see him running into trouble on the feet with somebody that has good takedown defense and big knockout power. But Carlos Hernandez, even though he's a scrappy dude with okay wrestling, I don't think he can stop Ray's onslaught of wrestling pressure, takedown attempts, and submission attempts, too. Something that makes Tsuruya a very special prospect is the fact that he goes out there and doesn't just look to grind wins out. He's looking for a finish throughout the whole thing. He has this ability to crank necks from all different positions on the ground, and it seems like it's a very underutilized technique that he's made as a masterful, weapon for himself, because it seems like it really hurts his opponents. The road to the UFC, he absolutely burst on the scene. I do have to say, last time out against Janishiu, I thought thought it was an early stoppage. I know that Tsuruya nearly had, the neck crank, the weird, I don't even know what the submission is called. It's like a opposite side guillotine, but instead you just breaking the opponent's neck. And then he started landing big ground and pound, and the ref jumped in with a second left in the first. I personally thought they could have let the fight go a little longer, but it is what it is. He's still a monster. You can't knock him for an early ref stoppage. He's the road to the UFC winner, and Carlos Hernandez is not going to be the guy that takes his undefeated record. I'm going to say Tsuruya wins, and I think he also has a high probability of winning by submission. He's a really big favorite. It's because the hype seems to be pretty legit. Minus 500 for Tsuruya with Hernandez at plus 375. If you're looking at the side of the over-unders, overs plus money. Another fight's expected to finish. Under 2.5 is minus 180. I'm saying Tsuruya inside distance, and I think it's live for a submission call. But it wouldn't be crazy if Hernandez was able to survive, because he is a UFC decent journeyman. I mean, 9-3, so it's not like he's got a ton of experience at the, fight game, where Tsuruya is also 9-0, right? The same amount of wins is what I'm saying. So it's not like it's a huge experience edge for Hernandez, but what he has that's a big edge is that UFC experience. But ultimately, I don't think he has the punching power to put Tsuruya down. I don't think he has the wrestling and grappling defense to stop him. So my official pick, I'm going Tsuruya, win, submission, and I think he's going to get the people going crazy. I really think Japan has some killers right now coming up in the UFC, and I am very excited for this next era of prospects. Another flyweight savage to keep an eye on. So Rei Tsuruya, submission over Carlos Hernandez. Next fight, we have Andrei Arlovski versus Martin Buday. So we have the oldest fighter on the roster versus one of the fattest fighters on the roster. I'm going to pick Andrei Arlovski to beat Martin Buday, and it's just simply because Buday is not really good. I mean, you can say, oh, but he beat Lucas Drezhki. Lucas Drezhki was, decent record at the time, 8-1-1. No, he didn't. That was a BS decision. And Lucas Drezhki is a smaller heavyweight, which there's comparisons to be made with Arlovski being a smaller heavyweight. He then beat Jake Collier in a competitive fight. In my opinion, Jake Collier completely sold at the end of the fight, like falling to the ground and then giving his back. Obviously, Arlovski had a tough fight with Collier too a while ago. And then Josh Parisian sub. It's Josh Parisian. I don't know if that counts. And then Shamil Gaziev destroyed him. Gaziev's a different level. Andrei Arlovski's in a weird spot because, yes, he's lost 3 in a row, but Hajiro de Lima's a pretty savage fighter. If you look, Dontel Mays, he's with the power, but when he lands, it can do serious damage. And obviously, he trained at Albuquerque, Greg Jackson's, where Arlovski spent a lot of time. So they had a little bit of understanding of the Arlovski game, maybe more than most. And then the Where's Waldo fight was close. I think Andrei Arlovski wins a 29-28 decision, probably a split decision. It's going to be competitive. Arlovski's faster. Martin Buday, for a long time, was playing video games 20 hours a day. They said it in the broadcast in a previous fight. And he doesn't have athleticism at all. Andrei Arlovski has way better footwork, way better boxing combinations, and is way slicker and more technical. Could Buday clip him with a big looping shot at 265 pounds? Sure. Could he smother him against the cage and use that gut? Sure. But I think Andrei Arlovski has a clear-cut speed advantage, and if we're going long, there is a real chance that Andrei Arlovski is connecting big shots on Martin Buday and beats him. So give me Andrei Arlovski. I think he's taking out Buday. Arlovski plus 215, Buday minus 255. It's just because Arlovski's old, he's this big of a favorite. But like Martin Buday's skill set is kind of ancient, bro. It's like the OG fighters back in Arlovski's heyday. I think Arlovski can outpoint him. Minus 185 for the over 2.5. Again, if it's over 2.5, that's got to favor Arlovski. Like Buday, I don't think he's a good grappler. I know he tapped out fucking Parisian, but it's Josh Parisian. And in striking, he's definitely at a speed disadvantage. He has like a bit of a high guard, Muay Thai-esque style. He throws heavy shots, but I think he's too slow. And I'm going to pick Andrei Arlovski to touch him up and win a 29-28 decision. At 45, nearly 46, Andrei Arlovski gets a win. And maybe this is the one he rides off into the sunset with. I doubt it. But we're picking Pitbull Arlovski to win. Next fight on the card, ladies going after it. We got Michelle Waterson-Gomez versus Jillian Robertson. I'm picking Michelle Waterson-Gomez to win this fight. I think she can beat Jillian Robertson. Waterson-Gomez has good takedown defense. On top of that, she's got really good striking and a clear-cut speed advantage, not only in her striking, but also in her footwork. And then you look like, yeah, Jillian Robertson has a smothering grappling game. She's got good top pressure and control and a legit submission threat. But, like, let's remind, everybody of who Jillian Robertson is going out and beating. Polyana Viana, who's mid-caliber, okay? Piera Rodriguez, who's okay. I mean, she was undefeated at the time, but she's still okay at best. Fucking headbutts cost her last fight. Agapova, who's utter trash at this point. And then Michelle Waterson, 4-fight losing streak, but Marina Rodriguez twice, her most recent fight in the first loss on the streak. Amanda Lemos, title challenger, absolute monster. And Luana Pinheiro in a fight that could have went either way, and Waterson-Gomez finished really strong. I think Michelle Waterson-Gomez is going to win. I think she can defend Jillian Robertson's takedown offense, using good defense, and then up striking, touching her up with clean shots. Bing, bing, bong, bro. I think that Michelle Waterson's getting it done, and I think she's going to pull through with a decision win over Jillian. I don't see her getting bodied in the grappling. I know she's older at 38, but Jillian Robertson, I just can't see smothering Michelle Waterson for 3 rounds. Like, you can't really knock Waterson's losses. They're against ranked caliber opponents. Whereas, Robertson's loss here to Tabitha Ricci. I'm not even convinced Tabitha Ricci is beating Michelle Waterson-Gomez if they fought right now. I'm not sure of that. I think Michelle Waterson-Gomez is going to win a decision against Jillian Robertson, and I don't think she should be the underdog. She's plus 146 is the dog. Robertson minus 171. Looking at the over in the fight, over 2.5 is minus 165. Probably going long with the ladies. Waterson-Gomez almost beat Carla Esparza 2 in a 5-round fight some years back, and Esparza's wrestling is high caliber. And I think Waterson-Gomez only gave up 1 takedown in that fight, if I'm not mistaken. So I think she can handle Jillian Robertson. Even at 38, there's a clear speed advantage and historically good takedown defense. Michelle Waterson-Gomez for the big upset in this fight. Let's keep running up. Next fight on the card, we have Payton Talbott versus Yanis Ghemmouri. I'm going to say it how it is. Yanis Ghemmouri is a sacrificial lamb to continue pushing the Payton Talbott hype train. He's okay. Against William Gomis, that fight was shit. It was a lot of technical touching from the outside, kind of staring at each other a bit, and then, a low shot that wasn't really low that Ghemmouri ended up getting bailed on in the fight. He turned around, the ref stopped it. It was weird. Payton Talbott just destroyed Cameron Simon, who's actually not bad. Fight before that, he got a win over Nick Aguirre, who tried to fucking wrestle him up, and then he ends up subbing him. Then win on Contender Series, Reyes Cortez. I think Talbot can land some big punches on Ghemmouri. The way Ghemmouri stands, I just see him a sucker for straights. And I think Payton Talbot's going to have some quick 1-2s that he stings Ghemmouri up with. He has him on wobbly legs and he knocks him out. I just can't see Ghemmouri's point fighting style with the chin up high getting through a Payton Talbot who's supposed to have the goods of being, the next big thing. The odds reflect the same thing. Minus 1,500 Payton Talbot. Ghemmouri at plus 850. Let's see, what do we got? Under 1.5 rounds is plus 105. Man, if there was a under 2.5 at plus 105, I'd tell you that's great. But under 1.5 is still riskier because it's not like Talbot hasn't gone distance. Normally knockout artist. I'll say yes. I'll say yes, it goes under, but I'm not telling you that it's a great bet. But you can't money line Talbot at all. Maybe you're touching the knockout prop. We'll see what that exists at. I'm assuming the knockout's minus 250 as well. So Payton Talbot to win over Yanis Ghemmouri KO. I think he should dust him, touch him up clean with big shots. And note that Ghemmouri's last fight was at 145 against William Gomis. And historically, he's a bantamweight. And, he's coming back down to take on Talbot. Doesn't matter. Talbot's going to destroy him. Let's go. Next fight on the card, we have Charles Jourdain versus Gene Silva. I'm going with Gene Silva to win. I know he's unproven at the highest level, but I do like the potential that I see. And Charles Jourdain, he's a 50-50 fighter. He's 15-7 as a pro, 2-3 in his last 5. His kicking skill set is good. His movement is also really good. But in the boxing, there is a clear advantage for Gene Silva. And I also feel like Gene Silva has an advantage inside of the clinch. He's got nasty elbows and knees from there. And if they go to the ground, I expect Gene Silva to have a physicality advantage. I think Jourdain could have a potential submission threat advantage. But Gene Silva being the Brazilian and training out of Fighting Nerds, I'm going to assume that his defensive grappling skills are pretty up to par. So for Jourdain to win, he's got to be essentially perfect, kick him up from the outside, stay moving on him. Gene Silva's going to rock Charles Jourdain at some point. I think there's a possibility of a second or third round knockout for Gene Silva, but I also wouldn't be that surprised if we go 3 rounds and Silva picks it up in the scorecards. I'm going with Gene Silva to win. I'm going with the up-and-coming Brazilian Savage. I think he's got something special, and not to say Jourdain isn't good. Jourdain's pretty good. It's just that next level Jourdain hasn't been able to reach, and he's like teetering towards it, whereas I think Gene Silva has the potential to be in the top 15. Gene Silva has the potential to actually really work his way up. I'm not saying he's the next champ, but I do think he can get some impressive wins, and I think this is a huge second UFC fight. It's insane that not only Gene Silva getting a huge second UFC fight, same for Vinicius Oliveira. I got some faith in Silva. -105, we got even odds here. Jourdain's been in the UFC a long time, so I definitely would understand hesitancy on the Gene Silva betting side and the fact that now it's even money. What was that at before? Wasn't Gene up at plus what? He was up at plus 170, but a lot of money is laid down on Silva. It's because he does have better boxing than Jourdain, and he's better on the inside in the clinch, so there's clear advantages for him. He's physically going to be stronger. He's got a little bit of like a muscularity edge, which I favor him in the grappling. So we're going Silva to win. The over is -150. Jourdain is historically pretty durable, but I will tell you, don't forget, he has been rocked before. I believe Nathaniel Wood rocked him. And then he fought Sean Woodson, who's a good touch sniper style from the outside last time. Had the win. Kron Gracie win is at this point. It doesn't really count for shit. And then Ricardo Ramos win. Ramos completely sold the fight. He fumbles the bag, leaving his neck out like a moron. Gene Silva's not doing that. Gene Silva for the win over Charles Jourdain. KO or decision, I would say. And I think it's going to be pretty impressive nonetheless. Good fight. I'm excited to see what Gene Silva can do against Jourdain. It's a massive competition jump. Next fight, we have Cub Swanson versus Andre Fili. Battle of OGs at this point. But like the real OG of OGs is Cub Swanson. He's 40 years old. This is Cub Swanson. Last time he fought Hakeem Dawodu, I'll be honest, I thought he lost to Dawodu. I was surprised they gave it to him. He was surprised they gave it to him. And now he's taking on Andre Fili. Andre Fili's smooth with his stand-up. He's got pretty good boxing. Fili ran into a bomb, though. Dan Ige flattened him last time in vicious fashion, but it was just karma for sleeping Lucas Almeida so brutally, too, in the fight before. Went distance with Nathaniel Wood. Both guys have moments. Bill Algeo decision's all right. Brito destroyed him quick. It's just Cub Swanson's about to be 41 at bantamweight, and I'm going to go out and pick him against Andre Fili, who's a good amount younger, has a height and reach advantage, is pretty decent from the outside, well-rounded. Andre Fili is a guy that trades wins and losses. He's due for a win. I guess you could say the same about Cub Swanson. And I mean, it looks like he's due for a loss, even though he should be on a 2-fight losing streak heading into this fight. I think Andre Fili's getting his hand raised. I think he lands cleaner shots in a competitive fight, and I think he gets it done 29-28. I think Swanson will look okay, and I think he'll be game for sure, and I think they're going to swing hard at the end of this. But I think Fili a little bit more precise, a little bit cleaner, getting it done on the scorecards. Cub Swanson plus 199 as the dog. Fili the -234 favorite. Let's see. Let's look at the over. Over 2.5, -120. I think there's a good chance it's going over. I know Fili was just slept last time, and I know what? A couple fights before, Cub Swanson got destroyed at bantamweight by Jonathan Martinez. But I think both guys can take it to the later stages here. We've seen a lot of decisions in the past with Fili and Cub Swanson. I'm going to say they do go long. I'm going to say Andre Fili on the judges' scorecards. I'm going to say 29-28. I think Swanson gives a good gutsy effort in what's potentially his last fight, and Fili's getting his hand raised. So let's go with him. Next fight on the card brings us to our featured bout of the night. It's Joe Pyfer versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm going with Joe Pyfer. I think he can knock Marc-Andre Barriault out, and if he can't knock him out, I still think he can win a decision. I am not jumping off the Joe Pyfer hype train because of a loss to a high-caliber veteran in Jack Hermansson. Marc-Andre Barriault's got decent stand-up for sure. He mixes up the shots well on the inside. He's underrated inside of the clinch too. But Pyfer has a clear speed advantage. I think he's got a real good chance of landing some big straights down the line and stinging Barriault, putting him on wobbly legs, and I think finishing him off. I am officially going to call Pyfer by KO. I feel like he's this too quick, too explosive, too athletic, and too precise, man. He's also really physically strong and good at grappling, too. So where's Barriault's advantage? Barriault can make it a dogfight. He's tough, but he's going to be getting hit a lot with 1-2s, and I think he's going to get busted up, and I'm going to say he ends up getting knocked out. I think Joe Pyfer brings the hype back to him with a big win over the pretty game Marc-Andre Barriault. Now, as far as the odds, Barriault plus 240 is a really big underdog. Joe Pyfer is minus 280. Pyfer should get it done. I will predict inside of the distance, minus 130 for the under 2.5. I think it's live to hit. We saw Chidi Njokuani get a quick knockout of Marc-Andre Barriault, and then he gave a really good fight to Chris Curtis, but I still think that Pyfer's level should be a little higher than Chris Curtis's. Even looking at the Jack Hermansson fight, how Chris Curtis was completely dog-walked in that whole fight, Joe Pyfer did have competitive moments. One early, round 1? Maybe you give him round 2, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Joe Pyfer is 27 and still improving and evolving. He didn't get viciously knocked out last time. He's still got a good skill set, and he's going to put Marc-Andre Barriault to sleep on Saturday night. So I'm going with Pyfer to pull through. Let's jump to our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Ian Machado, Garry versus Michael Venom Page. This is a fight where I did an early prediction and reaction to, and out the gate I was thinking Page. But I can't lie to you. After looking into it more, I think that Page is going to be susceptible not only to leg kicks by Ian Garry, but punches in the close range. Him keeping his hands low like that, I do think that Ian Garry's going to throw some high kicks up to the top. Could potentially see him catching Michael Venom Page up high. But what Ian Garry is potentially going to do is mix in grappling. Kevin Holland was on top of Michael Venom Page doing some work with ground and pound, and historically, Kevin Holland's not getting on top of anybody. I think that Ian Machado Garry's going to knock him out or win a decision. It wouldn't be crazy if you got it on the scorecards, but I don't know. I'm going to say knockout. I put KO or decision as the official call, but something's telling me Ian Garry stylistically is in an interesting clash with Michael Venom Page. Venom Page gets a little cocky with those hands down, taunts at the wrong time. I could see a big counter from Ian Machado Garry. I can see Ian Machado Garry putting him on the ground and delivering some big ground and pound strikes. I'm not ready to jump off Ian Garry's train yet. Maybe early reactions, sometimes they get clouded, but when I sit on it and really put the time in to focus on the pure prediction, I think Ian Machado Garry can beat Michael Venom Page at 37 years old. A 37-year-old Michael Venom Page versus a primed Ian Garry. I think Gary's going to be in his face throwing hard shots. I think he can hurt Michael Venom Page. I think he can take him down. And I honestly think he's going to beat him cleaner than people are expecting. So I'm going with Ian Machado Garry to pull off the biggest win of his career against Michael Venom Page. And I know some people might look at the Jeff Neal fight, but thinking of it, you have to remember, Jeff Neal is a completely different stylistic matchup than Michael Venom Page. Jeff Neal is a guy that can box out of southpaw and throws fucking power shots, whereas Michael Venom Page, stance switching, hands low style, point karate-esque. Ian Garry can close the gap on that and land hard too. I'm going Ian Garry to knock him out. I think he's going to beat Michael Venom Page, and even sometimes when Page throws the 1-2, I don't know. I don't think he has the same snap as Garry. And I'm going with Ian Garry to win. Garry is an ever so slight favorite, essentially even odds, minus 132, Page plus 112. Looking at the over-under, under is what? Plus 200, over minus 260. I mean, it might go over. I could see it going over, but I don't know. Right now, I'm not loving it. Ian Garry down the center is minus 130. Essentially, even money fight. I think Ian Garry's going to end up coming through and shining. So we're going with him Ian Machado Garry to win over Michael Venom Page in what's going to be a massive fight. And it was supposed to be leading up to Conor McGregor. We don't get that, but we still got a fucking fantastic card. Next fight, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. You know, I wanted to pick Macy Chiasson heading into this, but I just feel like she's too vulnerable for submissions, man. Her jiu-jitsu is a little sloppy for my liking. And Bueno Silva, regardless of her looking kind of against Raquel Pennington, she nearly got the rear naked choke a few times in that fight. She has really good back takes. And even though Macy Chiasson has a freakish size advantage, I mean, look at that, 5-inch height advantage. Holy hell, 5.5-inch reach advantage. There's a lot of major attributes that favor Macy Chiasson, but where I know an advantage lies for Bueno Silva is when they tie up and when they grapple. Yes, Chiasson, the physicality could be a major factor, but it's not about them in a wrestling match. It's the fact that I can see Bueno Silva capitalizing on a Chiasson mistake on the inside and strangling her. I'm thinking Bueno Silva by sub. I think she can lock it up. She just recently fought for the belt. Fight before that, she strangled Holly Holm. Bueno Silva's got nasty submissions, and I don't think I can look past that here against Macy Chiasson. I can see her getting her back taken. I can see her getting controlled. We've seen her taken down before, and I think Mayra Bueno Silva by submission is going to be the result come Saturday night. Looking at the odds, oh my gosh, they're close. -126. Bueno Silva opened up at -192. All the love is on Chiasson. +106 for Macy Chiasson. Essentially even money now. I got Mayra Bueno Silva to pull through, though. I do think she's going to win with the odds really coming a lot closer. Over 2.5? If it's over 2.5, in a sense, that favors Macy Chiasson's wrestling and size. Because from distance, Chiasson with the major reach advantage. From wrestling, I feel like is where you're going to see Bueno Silva have success, because Chiasson at times gets too sloppy for my liking with her takedown attempts and clinch work, and mistakes are made. And Bueno Silva to capitalize on the mistakes and win by submission is my official prediction. We're going with her to win, bringing it back to Brazil with a W. Next fight featured bout. Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Roman Dolidze. I am going with Anthony Smith. I'm not a big Dolidze believer, man. Especially at light heavyweight. I thought he looked like shit back when he was at light heavyweight. I remember the John Alon fight. That was trash for him. And then you see him go up, lose to Trevin Giles. I never expected Roman Dolidze to make a run towards the rankings in the UFC middleweight division, but he did have a masterclass win over Jack Hermanson. I'm not going to call it a fluke, but I almost did. But it's not. It was a great performance. Anthony Lionheart Smith is going to knock Roman Dolidze out. Dolidze was badly rocked against Nasruddin Imavov. A big portion of Dolidze's game is holding on in the clinch, smothering opponents, tying up, smother, tying up, smother. I feel like Anthony Lionheart Smith with the size edge in this fight, big factor. I think he can land some clean strikes from range. Dolidze hits hard, but he doesn't have striking skills. He's not anywhere near a good boxer. I think Anthony Smith pulls it off. I think he can win potentially by KO. I'm thinking Anthony Smith finds the chin of Roman Dolidze. Dolidze jumping in on short notice. As outgame and tough as he is, I still think Lionheart Smith can beat a guy that should be at middleweight. When they match up at light heavyweight, I think this is Anthony Smith's fight. It's crazy how this fight went from Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill to now it's Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze. What a shift. But yeah, I'm going with Anthony Smith to win. I was going to pick Carlos Ulberg over Smith, but this is a matchup where I think Anthony Smith can shine, and he's an underdog at +138. He opened up a little wider at +145. Looking at Dolidze, -158, the favorite. I don't think Dolidze should be a favorite at light heavyweight over Anthony Smith, regardless of Smith's bad performances. The over is -120. Maybe it goes distance, but I don't know. Something's hinting to me finish. And I don't see Dolidze being the guy to tap Anthony Smith, who's got really good jiu-jitsu at light heavyweight. I think Smith can rock Dolidze. Imavov almost got him out in the first round. You could say, oh, maybe up a weight class he'll be better. Maybe up a weight class he'll be slower and more susceptible to big shots. And that's why I favor Smith. Smith last time, big upset over Vitor Petrino by submission. Lost to Khalil Roundtree, who's a monster in Muay Thai. The Ryan Spann fight, competitive fight. He got a split decision. And Ryan Spann hasn't looked great as of late, so this wasn't a good one. Lost to Johnny Walker. He got picked apart. And Magomed Ankalaev, no shame there. And then Dolidze, Lost to Vettori in somewhat controversial fashion, and then clear loss to Nasruddin Imavov. Like, I see, I guess, why Dolidze is the favorite for what he's done at middleweight, but this is a different weight class. At light heavyweight, I'm going with Lionheart, Anthony Smith, to pull off a knockout upset in the feature bout. Let's keep running. Co-main event of the evening, Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. I'm going with Diego Lopes. The reason I like Diego Lopes a lot in this fight is he's not going to be fearful of grappling with Ortega. So Ortega's not going to have that massive threat of, listen, if we go to the ground, I have a huge advantage over you. So I feel like that will stifle Ortega's boxing a bit. And if Diego Lopes hurts Brian Ortega, I think he's going to have no fear of following up a big ground and pound, but even potentially looking to jump a submission for himself and tap out Brian Ortega. It's a possibility. Club and sub could be live. Not saying it's an absolute, but I'm picking Diego Lopes to win this fight, and I think he does finish Brian Ortega. When they're in the striking, I favor Diego Lopes to crack him with huge shots. Ortega's rocked. I see Lopes following him up to the ground, potentially, like I said, looking for submissions, but if not, ferocious ground and pound that I think is going to be effective too. I'm going with Diego Lopes, the prospect to beat an OG in Brian Ortega, whose only 3 losses are against high-caliber guys in Yair Rodriguez, Volkanovski, and Holloway. So with a win for Diego Lopes, he puts himself amongst the elite of the UFC featherweights, very short into his UFC career, just his 5th UFC fight, and he's got a chance of a lifetime. Give him the physicality edge, too. He's taller by 3 inches, longer by 3.5-inch reach. Come on. Diego Lopes to pull it out. I see him winning, man. I know you can say, oh, but look, Ortega beat Yair, Diego Lopes beat Yusuf, or he beat Sabatini, or he beat Tucker. On day's notice, he nearly beat Movsar Evloev, though, who's like the hottest prospect right now. And with the win, Diego Lopes becomes next up as a contender, jumping the line ahead of Movsar Evloev, regardless of the result on their short notice fight. Ortega, a slight favorite at plus 110. Lopes, minus 130 as the underdog. There's a chance of finish. Over 1.5, minus 215. They're making you play with fire because that over 1.5 is risky, man. I could see Lopes hurting him early and finishing him, but it wouldn't be crazy if we get into the later stages either. Don't love the over-under there. I don't know. Something hints at the over, but it could just be the juice line swaying me. I think Diego Lopes pulls it out, though. I think he's live for a potential knockout on the feet or a club and sub. And if they do end up going long, I can see Lopes getting a decision too. Diego Lopes for the W, the biggest win of his fighting career. And I think you might be looking at a future title challenger. I'm going to say you are. I'm going to say you definitely are. Let's jump to the main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Alex Pereira versus Jiří Procházka 2. The rematch on just, a few weeks' notice, but honestly, it works. It makes a lot of sense. I'm picking Alex Pereira again. The reason being is because I am not confident Jiří Procházka can stop the leg kicks, which he had significant issue with in the first fight. And then on top of that, I also don't believe Jiří Procházka can employ a wrestling-heavy game for a significant amount of time. And the likelihood of him getting a submission win over Alex Pereira from a takedown rather than from a knockdown, it would be more likely, I just think are relatively low. Jiří Procházka is a primary MMA striker. Yes, he can do it all. Yes, he tapped Glover Teixeira in a war. Procházka hits like a truck, 100%. His best bet is still on the feet, man. I don't see him as a smothering grappling style against Alex Pereira figuring itself out to work. Like when you see strikers try and become grapplers like that, it normally works in the opposite. They gas out and then they get knocked out on the feet. Alex Pereira's get-ups are underrated, and his calmness on the ground is something to respect a lot. And I think if they do hit the floor, Pereira will survive. Either he'll be getting up to his feet or the round will end and he'll get back up. When they get to striking, those leg kicks are going to damage Procházka, right? It's going to cause vulnerability for headshots to start coming together. And I think Procházka is live to get caught on the inside by Pereira again. Not that he couldn't land big punches and be more competitive than last time, but I think Poatan Alex Pereira may have also turned the corner with his MMA skills. You can say, yo, he's 36, nearly 37. How's he getting better? It's the light heavyweight division, dude. Guys get better into their damn 40s at light heavyweight. And Alex Pereira is still relatively new to MMA, so I believe Procházka will be taking on the best version of Alex Pereira ever. And even when you look at Procházka's last fight, he was getting touched up from the outside by Rakic. Yes, he cracked Rakic with a crumbling shot and destroyed him afterwards. But Alex Pereira is a different animal than Alexander Rakic. I'm going Alex Poatan Pereira by knockout again over Jiří Procházka in what is going to be a pretty fun fight. I'm actually really stoked for the rematch now that we're at fight week. Pereira is minus 160 as the favorite, so not a crazy wide line. Procházka plus 140 as the underdog. Looking at the over-unders here. Fight ends inside distance, minus 450. That's a fucking lock. Under 1.5 is plus 155. With the power Pereira has, the under-over side is risky, man. But he is calculated for sure. But I could see Procházka walking into a huge shot in the first minute of the fight. I could also see them going into the third round and Pereira catching him with a big punch and putting him down. Either way, I'm going with Alex Pereira and still champion. He's going to beat Jiří Procházka for a second time. And I think we have to take something away from the Jamal Hill fight too. He looked God tier against Jamal Hill. He looked better than ever before. I think he's improving. And I can't imagine what we get here against Procházka in the rematch, a guy who he knows now. You could say, oh, Procházka knows him too. But Procházka wasn't the one who won last time. He couldn't adapt to what Pereira's going to do. How's he going to adapt to the leg kicks? He didn't show it much against Rakic. And I don't think he's going to show it here against Pereira for a second time. So we're going Alex Pereira for KOW and still champion. That is UFC 303. Those are the full card predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you smash the like button if you guys are new. Subscribe to the channel. Turn the post notifications on and make sure you share the video, man. W in the comments if you got nothing to say, but definitely let me know what you thought of my picks and drop some of your favorite picks. I think it might be a pretty underdog-heavy prelim, and then heading into the main card, obviously the Anthony Smith live dog spot. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a wild ride. I'm confident, though, and I'm feeling very good. I think we got some money calls, and I'm looking forward to Saturday. Keep it locked in all week. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.